Hi, this is Diane Greco-Allen, and I'm here with another episode of Family Food Safety and the Food Epiphany. In this series and this episode, we're going to talk about detoxing your kitchen. And there's a lot of different ways to look about detox, and a lot of people are confused with that word and what it means. And so I'm just going to maybe ask some questions about what you think a detox is and why would you want to look at your kitchen for detoxing? Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
I've been trying to rid my kitchen of sugar. So I'm just just everything that's not healthy. So just trying to eat better. So that's why I'm here to learn, but just that's how I'm detoxifying my kitchen with the sugar and the trans fat and the unhealthy things that have been in. My grandson lived with me for about 2 years, and there was a lot of candy, marshmallows, things like that in my cabinets.
Yeah. And what about anybody else? Bonnie?
Yeah, just really, processed foods, eating and making sure that, you can eat as clean as possible with organic foods, organic vegetables, but really detoxing from, the processed foods. And also, I think your cookware has a lot to do with, your toxins in your kitchen and what you're to cook, what you're actually using to cook with.
I like everything you're saying, and it resonates with everything that I'm going to be showing you tonight. And, I had no clue, even for myself, that the Teflon pans that we grew up with were an issue, and how much that impacted a lot of people and the water system, so you don't know that all this stuff. And I don't know if you guys have ever thought about the whole process of people who get rid of their medicines, like through the water system, and how that collects and things like that. We never really thought about it growing up. So if it's okay with you, I'm just going to share my screen, and we're going to go into a little bit about see if I can get this to come up. Okay, so I have some open things here. We're going to go straight to this is from actually Dr. Mark Hyman, and he's one of the leading functional medicine doctors. And there's so many things in our kitchen cabinets, and he's a contributor to this, but this is Huffpost. But I just sort of went through and just looked at some of the things that were mentioned here. And there's so much that we get trapped into, we don't even realize, in making things a little safer, not just for us, but for our children and for our grandchildren. But one of the things they say is just to set aside that time. Set aside an hour to purge your kitchen. And have you, either of you or any of you, tried to do any purging at this time?
I have, yes. And, I love pickles, sweet pickles. And I looked at my pickle jar, and it wasn't even sugar, in it. It was high fructose corn syrup. And I thought, oh my gosh. So of course, and I think I bought that. I must not have checked the label when I did buy it. So it's in the garbage, and never even opened it. And it's things like that we really don't realize what we're missing. When you go to the store and you pick something up, unless you really, really read, the ingredients. And I just went through my cupboards in the kitchen about a week ago and started really looking at things, and got rid of all those things that have the high fructose and the high sugar content. And so Yeah, it is important, because I think sometimes when we go to the grocery store, you're in a hurry, you just
Mhm.
want to pick up things, and then you don't really take the time to realize what what you're buying.
Mhm.
Yeah, Kara, have you noticed anything?
Well, the new thing was, my sister told me about I can't know if I pronounce it right, Sabucho, the new drink that's supposed to help you.
Kombucha, yeah,
Yes.
well, yeah, that can, yes.
But however, I noticed how much sugar was in it. They had added sugars. And
Yeah.
sugar.
Yes,
It just
you're
comes
right.
to mind. It was like 34% sugar. I didn't realize. But yeah, just going through. I'm just really saying just straight sugars, the candy and the things that just trying to get that out of my kitchen. Yeah, just really the sugars.
Yeah, and it is tricky because some of the labels say that these are healthy snacks and these
Mhm.
are healthy drinks, and when
Yeah.
you add all that up, and
Mhm.
some of those things are like these large. I know I was like doing the same thing. I was buying all that stuff before,
Yeah.
and then it was like after a while, my HbA1c was going up, and I'm like, why is this happening?
Yeah.
You think you're doing something healthy, and then you find out that a lot of the health foods that are labeled healthy aren't really healthy.
Right.
They trap you into these things. So
Mhm.
yeah, so when we went through the functional medicine course, that I loved it because they really went down into these details about anything that's got a label on it that has to put all these different things on it. Sometimes those are the ones that are the worst ones. So,
Yeah.
with the label stuff, yeah, looking into the sugars is huge.
Mhm.
And then now this says fresh avocado or kiwi doesn't come with a label, which is great. So, things like all the stuff in the produce section. Have you found anything that is in the store that you just can't seem to get away from yet?
Hmm. I don't know. There's a lot. I mean, I went past the ice cream, the ice cream aisle just to see if there was like something in there, no sugar. I know my sister's been a lifelong diabetic. She's 67 and she's been a diabetic since she was a year and a half. And she was eating these no sugar added popsicles. And she didn't realize how high her blood sugar went from those compared to now she's eating sugar-free popsicles for like a snack. So they're not as bad. But yeah, I go through, I just love the old fashioned, the breads, the carbs, this,
Mhm.
chips, that's something I just can't have in my house or I won't let it alone. So that's just my old standbys. It's hard for me to get away from it. So if I'm out, I would eat it, but I try not to buy it. So I'm not safe with it in my house.
Bonnie, was there anything that you just can't stop yet?
I love crackers, and that's highly processed. And I too am, if it's in the house, I don't make cake. I don't make brownies. I love brownies.
Yeah.
Um, I don't try not, unless my family's coming, I do something like that. But I really try not to have those things. And if I make cookies for Christmas, I put them in the freezer, which is in my basement, which is not as readily available.
Yeah.
Yes, but yeah, same thing. Carbs, crackers, cheese. I love cheese. So those sorts of things. I try, to buy the whole grain, crackers and that sort of thing. But you're still, into highly processed food, really.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's just so tricky because I'll tell you, all those foods, I was addicted to Pringles for many years. And I am telling you that between Pringles and the cheese puffs, I was like so addicted. So it would go from ice cream to Pringles to cheese puffs. And it's that big cycle. I have a graphic in my book about that big cycle, the salt and sugar, how it goes around and it affects your hormones. But you know, it's so tricky to get away from that. And then I was a heavy coffee drinker. Heavy. I'm talking, you name it, I could pour it in there. Two-fisted. So anyway, yeah. So it's not easy to actually break that cycle, but it's possible. It's possible. So yeah, so you know, focus on nutrition facts. They're all about really noticing how many carbohydrates and what added sugars there are. You know, added sugars. And so one of the things that I found, and I picked up some foods just to show you these things. So this is a, you know, this is a type of seasoning. And what I found out, I love this seasoning and I started using it right away because I thought, okay, this is great. And I was eating like sort of keto meals. But of course, you know, it's got brown sugar. That's the first item on there. Brown sugar. It is, you know, the lower amount is better, but some of the seasonings that you pick up off the market and some of the little packets that come with things, they're all sort of tricky with that stuff.
Right.
And you just, sometimes it's hard to notice. So, yeah, so noticing the other thing that I sort of learned was that the fat content compared to the sugar content. You know, there was some guy that was on, he was all over the internet saying it's better to eat a candy bar than it is to eat a piece of fruit or something. And it was because of the fat content of the candy bar. But, you know, and it does have some effect if it's like cocoa fat or whatever kind of fat it is, depends on the type of fat. But then I started going through all of these chocolate bars because I love dark chocolate. And I went through all these different chocolate bars, looked at the fat content compared to the carbohydrate content and the sugars. And then I found that this beautiful Montezuma's Revenge, or whatever it's called, Montezuma with the cocoa nibs, this had 93% chocolate liqueur. And then the other ones, you know, you just have to really pay attention. One of them had 26 grams of fat to 12 grams of carbs. And you know, some of those things make such a big difference because that fat ratio, at least it balances it out a little bit, but it's better to eat a piece of fruit. That dark chocolate, it is a good alternative, you know, than just a Snickers bar. But, you know, other than that, so yeah, I mean, it's not easy to figure out what the best things are for us, and they're hidden in tricky ways all over the wrappings and content. So there, according to his list, not just scrutinizing the label on every ingredient list, being conscious of what's in there and the types of fats, and we'll go into that, but ditch these types of foods. And he goes right into the harmful ingredients. Of course, it says there's 257 names for sugar. And even honey, you know, organic cane juice, honey, agave. Well, that was another thing that I started relying on, were these treats that were being made over at Whole Foods. I got addicted to them. You know, I thought, oh my gosh, this is something that's healthy. I think I can eat it. And I started buying it, and I still was having GI problems. And it was because it was filled with agave. So, you know, some of these things, I just, you know, you really, really don't know the how it impacts you until it does. You know, until you have those consequences. Have you noticed anything with like the consequences of eating something, or have you guys had that experience?
No, not particularly.
Mhm. I really struggle, with my stomach of different foods, especially like chocolate. So I really don't think I can even eat chocolate. But like I remember you said, oh, like maybe I have something in the freezer, just take a little piece of it. So I notice it's the quantity, but yeah, I have issues. I was out and somebody was pulling stevia out of their purse and putting that in their tea. What do you think of stevia?
Well, they're still saying that it is natural. Some of it's natural. It's real refined.
Mhm.
So it does still go into your blood sugar. I mean, it goes into your bloodstream quick because it is really refined.
Okay.
And so, if they had the stevia leaf, it might be a different story. But, anything that's like super refined and they just break it down to such, it's just powder. Some of the powders really can affect you. So, even molasses, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to start baking with molasses. I was so excited about that whole concept. And this was like when I was first starting to go on my journey with the sugar thing. Anything that comes from corn, we know that we've been bombarded with corn derivatives and all the refined stuff for such a long time. But I didn't understand about the xanthan gum. And my daughter's a culinary nutritionist, so she knew when we went to a restaurant, she'd say, Mom, all this stuff they use is not good. She said, you're going to have some issues if you eat that. And that maltodextrin. And so I really had to give up a lot, but it took me about 2 years to even figure out what I was eating. I don't know for you if where you are with this, but in the barbecue sauce, I used to make the best barbecue sauce. I don't know. Do you guys use barbecue sauce?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there are some great rubs out there that you can make. Dry rub. Because we started going towards the dry rub, and the ketchup, with the ketchup having high fructose corn syrup in it, and even some of the sauces that I was using, I found out that there were sugars that were added that I never knew were in there, and then I could tell immediately that things were headed down the wrong path.
I didn't realize like A1 sauce for steaks, and A1, like if you put something on your steak, you really can't put ketchup, A1 or barbecue. I mean, they're all have sugar in them, so it's really hard.
Well, I think too, though, that if you want to season, just like, you look at the amount, and depending on what else is on your plate. If it's all sugar in there, or if it's like a carbohydrate, depending on what kind of carbohydrate it is, I think that makes a difference too. My daughter, her situation is that she was allergic to peanuts and soy. So we became very familiar with everything on the market. And so then we were more familiar with what contained peanuts and soy. And then when we got to the sugar part, we're like, oh my God, we got to get out of the middle of the store. There was not too much to be had. And even for, how you go and buy a beautiful vegetable tray and they have these things in the middle. It's got so much of the ingredients that they're unpronounceable. And some of that stuff just, doesn't fit. But anyway, so they go into the bad fats, and they are, things that people get confused about with fat and how it can cause the trans fat, as you said, can create a lot of inflammation and heart disease. Now, they're talking here about highly refined cooking oils such as corn and soy, fried foods that you end up, putting in your freezer, and hydrogenated fats and stuff like that. So, I went to completely low fat during my nursing career. because I thought that was where it was. So I was eating more carbs and didn't know it. So all through my nursing career, I went on this like binge of all this low fat food, and it was all the wrong hype. It was all in the wrong direction. Were you guys aware of the different fats before, or when did you become more aware of fats?
I've been aware and, just reading more and more, certainly, about and going through the cancer coaching program, the difference in the fats and the types of fats and the highly processed, oils. So, yeah, and, margarine and what, I can't believe it's not butter, and all of those are, very, I do believe that, you have the ghee, which is really good, that's good for you. Clarified butter, which is what that is. And then, but staying away from the margarines and, the artificial butters and margarines have such a high fat content.
Mhm.
But bad fats.
Yeah.
Bad fats, yeah. I'm not well versed in the bad fats. I kind of get a lot of this from my sister, like she'll say, well, I just had a taco salad yesterday or the day before. And I remember her saying, can't eat that shell because that's all like lard, made of lard is the shell, something like that. But I just know, it's just like, if it tastes good, it's probably bad. If it tastes too good, it's probably bad for you. But I've really just kind of learned a lot from her. I always feel like regular sugar is in small amounts is probably better than these artificial sweeteners.
Right.
I used to love Diet Coke and all that, and I don't drink that anymore. And even that Coke Zero, I think that's probably another one that's like, people are like, there's no sugar in that, and that tastes too good to not have something bad in there. But
Yeah, as far as that lard, now there are some advocates of eating high animal fat, not high, but eating a moderate amount of animal fat to get some of the omegas and different types of fats in there.
Mhm.
It's not across the board, but there are some really some that focus on making sure that you get some animal fat in there, and that the corns are more the problem. So
Mhm.
some of those are made of corn, and the corn, of course, is a carbohydrate that breaks down to sugar easily.
Mhm.
But the thing that I found out too, and I was getting a lot of books on all these low sugar, and my process went on, I was finding out that a lot of these recipes were calling for xylitol and sorbitol. And like you said, stevia. Now here it says may be better than aspartame, but only in a whole plant form. That's what it is. So, all these things that are just, cycled through. And I was a huge, big Diet Coke fan, and I would get migraines like crazy.
Yeah.
I got horrific migraines from that. But I was not eating properly. I thought I was. I'd buy frozen vegetables and cook a big bag of frozen vegetables and then put those what are those dried noodles that everybody used to eat?
Ramen?
Yep, I used to put ramen in with that would be my dinner. Frozen bag of vegetables with ramen noodles. And then I would drink Diet Coke. And then I would run all through Pittsburgh like a maniac, but not knowing that it was zipping me up with all kinds of, my blood sugar was probably all over the place. So these things, and they cause all kinds of problems with intestinal issues and stuff like that. So anything it says, any ingredients that you can't pronounce, of course, when they start throwing all these things on that label, and it's just something you don't even know what it is. And any potential questionable food or ingredients. So, you know, some of the other things that I thought was interesting, because everybody goes and buys Pedialyte. You have to think about this. Pedialyte, I would get this when I get sick. And also any of the things that for colonoscopies, they have 50 or more grams of sugar as an osmotic that you take all at one time. You're dosing yourself with 50 milligrams of sugar in one dose. It's like giving you an IV of sugar. So this one is for, this one has 9 per serving, it says. And that's the Kinderlight. The other thing that I found was that these little guys here. Now, a lot of people are using these for your grandchildren, and they have 14 carbohydrates in one. There's no fat in it. There's no other, a protein. And so sometimes kids are, relying on these just alone in juice boxes, and they're just dosing with sugars. And I tried this because I wanted to try it to see what it tasted like. Actually, I did have a colonoscopy recently, and I tried to figure out how can I get everything cleaned out without doing that 50 grams of sugar. And so I tried to do different ways. But yeah, these are 14 grams at one time. And I just think the more we're aware, it can only benefit the children and us at the same time. Understanding, what kind of symptoms they might have related to drinking those without any extra proteins or, things like that. So, so they're saying to stock up on the non-starchy vegetables, and anything that's high in fructose or anything causes changes in insulin levels. And then you can go to environmental working groups, www.ewg.org. The girl that I had on for my last episode worked for, she actually graduated with an environmental science degree. And she had a lot of health issues. Then she found out that a lot of the environmental stuff that was creating actually tumors, in the body were related to some of the things that were either in her area or in the drinking water or whatever it was. So they have the dirty dozen list. And then there's the clean 15. So these sites are great to go on if you want any information about what to really avoid. And I will also provide that information on my For the Health of It page, because I'll have some of these links available for people to access. Local farmers market, and I know that farm to table is close, in our area is big. But you also have to be careful, because sometimes the vendors that come to farm to table, there are pretzel people there that have hemp in it. And, it's just trying to figure out what the best things are for you. It all sounds very natural until you read how many carbohydrates there are in one piece, So, and dry foods, they're saying, anything that has a long shelf life can cause some issues. Now, nuts, seeds, legumes, quinoa, and gluten-free grains, any of these items can also become rancid, and you have to really pay attention to where you're storing them, how they're being stored, and what they taste like when you eat them, because I've had rancid sunflower seeds before, and they were just horrific. You could, as soon as you put it in your mouth, it's like, this is really bad, and they can make you sick. So yeah. So is there anything you have to add or any questions about that? No? Okay, so have you guys cooked quinoa, or like the other thing that's very popular are lentils? Have you ever cooked with those?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And are you guys used to doing any prep? Do you do meal prepping?
I started to with, bought myself a salad spinner, got that. and I've been getting containers, I cut up cucumbers. I noticed my grandson likes the cucumbers. He really liked that, but I'm still working on it. And I like the quinoa. I've never really done lentils. I don't even know. Are lentils, they're
They're,
bean?
they're like a pea. And
Okay.
they're small. They're very small. They have different colors.
Mhm.
And you can get that was a huge, big thing through the Harvard chef course that I had gone through. They were cooking lentils all over the place because they were quick and easy to cook. But you have to be careful. You have to like switch things up, and sometimes relying too much on one thing can cause some issues. And the other thing was, about the ones that are dry foods that you want to keep. If you have an extra refrigerator, they do last longer in an extra fridge.
Mhm.
And so sometimes that works out. Now, as far as the herbs and spices, do you guys tend to have like a certain, like a number of spices that you rely on all the time, or do you mix things up? What are your thoughts on spices?
I try to mix things up, and try new spices, and it's I'm not real familiar with using a lot of spices, but I probably my main is like oregano, basil.
Mhm.
Um, I use I use fennel, I use dill. Uh, it depends on a recipe if I'm following, but those are probably the ones that I would use most. I've used lemon pepper.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, those are probably the main ones.
Mhm.
Kara, have you used anything different lately?
Not really lately, but I think my go-tos are pretty much garlic powder and oregano, parsley, but really don't use much spice. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's a great book. My daughter can put it in the chat box if she's still with us. I think it's called the Spice Bible or something. Lindsay, you can put it in there if you have it. But I wanted to show you real quick. I'm going to move this around here. I had created a list of different spices that I thought here's what I said: travel the world in your kitchen, and I put Italian every other one because I cook Italian throughout most of the time. But
Mom.
some of the blends we don't even think about it. Poultry seasoning. If you take that all apart, it's got so many different types of seasonings in it, and I have more recently used lemon thyme and lemon oregano, which I love. I'm just into these different ones. And my husband introduced us to a lot of cumin and the new turmeric blends and stuff like that. Those definitely are helpful with inflammation in the body. And they know that all these different ones are great for different reasons because they have so many benefits because they're like another type of they're like medicinal. But have you ever heard of herbs de Provence?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I started using that more, and I love it because it's got lavender in it, and I just think it's delicious. And I love rosemary. I'm huge with rosemary and sage. So
Diane,
yes,
can you hear me? Okay.
yes, we can.
Okay. I couldn't put it in the chat because I'm calling in.
Oh, okay.
But the book is called The Flavor Bible.
Oh, okay, good. I'll put it in there.
Mhm.
Yeah, the Flavor Bible. Lindsay has almost every book you can imagine for cooking because she had to buy it for class. And there was so much I learned from her classwork and stuff. And Lynn, do you want to share anything that you learned about any of these seasonings?
I just, I wanted to go back on what you were talking about before about like using like condiments and stuff like that. So I have worked in a clinical setting for 7 years. I've also done oncology outpatient, weight loss outpatient, endocrinology outpatient through like nutrition and my internship. I'm a step away from being a registered dietitian, but I kind of took it a little bit further throughout my career so far. But it's just taking one step at a time and making sustainable changes. So if it's not, if you need to use a little bit of condiment to season your food, you being satisfied with your meal and that wholesome meal rather than snacking is the important part of meal prepping. It's the important part of like having your meals. It takes your temptation away. A lot of the times, like, if you're craving things, it's a nutritional deficiency. So, using really whatever you can, whatever appeals to you, because, especially, your taste changes over time. So any acids really help, like lemon and even if you zest it in there, lime, things like that. You can use fresh ginger, but they really help to enhance your meal, take it to the next level, even if you're not using like the whole plant for the nutritional purposes. It's only going to give you, a small percentage of benefit from using a little bit, but I think that that's a huge component of meal prepping and general cooking is to make your overall meal more satisfactory.
Thanks, Lynn. Very good. Excellent adjustment there. Yeah, the thing that I started doing, and I don't know if you guys tend to do this or have started doing it. So meal prepping with one of my favorite meal prep books is the Mason jar book, where you can put everything wet at the bottom. You can try to put some kind of a olive oil and a little bit of vinegar. The citrus tends to be the vinegar for most of it. And there are pros and cons that I've read everywhere of different people saying how good apple cider vinegar is for you or whatever. I'm not going to say it comes from apples and that if you overdo it, it can cause some problems just as much as becoming too alkaline. Chocolate's alkaline. If you eat too much dark chocolate, you might get too alkaline, or if you're eating too many alkaline foods. But I love this book. And the jars, that you can use, you can make big ones or little ones. I keep a lot of these jars in my house. But you can store, celery, carrots, you can have that all prepped and put in here with some water just to make it easier, accessible throughout the week. And Sarah, you might like this. Well, you both might like this. These little guys I found that somebody was selling online, and I think these are going to be great to make, like even for soups and stuff, like for kids, or make it a chunky type of, I don't know, not a shake, but something that's got some chunks in it to help bring things to fruition, because you can put cucumbers. Have you ever made gazpacho?
No.
Gazpacho, I love it. And I used to eat it with sour cream, but now I use a nut milk in it. I don't use that much. And I'm going to get a recipe that I can post on my site. But gazpacho, I love. Lynn, tell me what's in gazpacho.
Basically, you can put any fresh vegetable, but the base of it is typically tomatoes and cucumbers. But I mean, you can make 1,000 different gazpachos and then just heat it up. You just blend fresh vegetables and herbs pretty much.
Mhm.
Well, the only way I knew what gazpacho was is my husband and he took me to an expensive place, and I got this bowl and it was cold soup, and I'm like, what is this? But it was delicious. And then ever since then, I started eating soups. They were heated up hot, but I would let them come to room temperature, and the taste is totally different. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but the taste is like super. It's almost like you can taste more of the seasonings. So that was a different way to look at it. But I put fresh basil in my salads. I love basil. I'm like crazy with basil. But travel the world, Mexican, Italian, Thai, Italian, Japanese.
A question. So think I forgot. I've seen that. See with the mason jar, so you can really put anything in there. Like you can, because I know when you talked about, I think it's better to do that meal prep. You do recommend, I'll put it that way, glass jars, not plastic. And so I would get a mason jar and put like cucumbers, and I know it used to be like you could put like a level. I don't know where
Yeah, they're layered. They're all layered. Yeah. And it's an excellent way to be able to refrigerate things and just pull it out. So have you tried it, Carol?
Well, I started to do it with plastic, but I think that sounds like you really are recommending glass to have your stuff stored in glass jars. Does that make because we don't know what this plastic is. And I was just thinking, if I finish a cottage cheese container, I could just use that, but it's best probably just to recycle them and use the glass jars do like cucumbers, garbanzo beans, like celery, that kind of stuff. But is it just layered, or do you mix it up? Do you put?
You can layer it, and then you can either eat it out of the jar. And for travel, this is like a great idea. And then you can mix it up. But one of the reasons it's layered is so that more of the wet ingredients are down at the bottom, so it doesn't make the greens get too moist. Sometimes if you have. And they're saying don't just use kale all the time. Too much kale is not good for you. Yeah. So you have to really mix those greens up. Anything that you can mix up with greens, because yeah. And then there's other ways of doing it. And I'm going to show you a quick clip of one other girl, because we only got a small time left. This other girl, she does meal prep like I do. And I wanted to share her video real quick with you. Let me see if I can get it so we can see it.
I can't hear. I'm not sure if anybody else can.
I'm sorry.
No.
You can't hear her?
No.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to figure out. I don't know how to share that. Lynn, do you know how?
I don't know if it would be your.
Okay, what I'll do is I'll share this with you. I'll share you her YouTube site, and it went on your own. You can look at it. But this is where I'm having trouble. And I actually hired somebody to help me yesterday, and she couldn't help me for me to share it. And I don't know if I have to change it over to a webinar to be able to share that. Lynn?
Mom, post it on your for the health of it page.
Yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll just post it so you guys can look at it, because this is what happened to me the other day. As a matter of fact, my whole first talk, I did a half an hour video, and there was no talk, no audio. And so I had to scrap that, and but anyway, so Lisa does it the way I do. And I'm just going to show you what she sort of does. She gets everything together, and she doesn't do batch cooking. There's batch cooking. Oops. No, so, oh, I know what it is. If you turn off, if you mute, we can listen real quick. See if it works.
I can't hear. I don't know what it is, but you could narrate it if you know what she's saying.
Okay, yeah. So this is what I'm saying. She does it like I do. We put each ingredient in a separate container. Some people actually make up their meals in each container. Like they'll make three different types of meat, and then all these different veggies, and then make up their little individual meals. I tend to do this at the beginning of the week. At the beginning of the week, I do my brown rice and quinoa, but everybody seems to do what works for them. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so it's just an idea of different ways to meal prep and to get a different view on what to be. And these little types of, there's so many on that you can get everywhere. Sometimes they're at Five Below, you can find them. You can go almost everywhere, and they have these little containers. But just to make ingredients a little bit easier, and they're all over Amazon. I love using this one. It's just a regular, now for bigger portions, this is a Pyrex. And just using anything that says BPH free and things like that. So, but for tonight, I think we're just going to stop with all that stuff. Is there any questions that you guys have and that you want to share, or anything that you want to add?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just struggling trying to curb the cravings, I'll put it that way. Yeah, that's how I'm starting.
All right. Well, I really appreciate you guys coming tonight and sharing all the things that have been going on with your, where you are with things. And I hope that some of this was helpful. Lindsay, thank you for coming on. I am going to stop recording and then just talk for a minute.